Hey, did you just get a new amplifier a couple weeks ago and all of a sudden you're like, I don't know if I really like this thing. It sounded better in the store and maybe I should either sell it or return it. Or maybe you've had an amplifier for a while now and for some reason it's just not working for you anymore and you can't figure out why. Well, I have some really good solutions for you. So before you give up on that amplifier and sell it or return it to the store, give these options a try. Let's get started. Hey guys, thanks for joining me for today's video. And if you like what I do here, which is basically amp demos, amp shootouts, dial-ins, how-tos, first impressions, troubleshooting guides like I'm doing in this video, and I do a lot of digital platforms as well on this channel. So, and you basically get unprocessed audio on your end. So there's no trickery, there's no studio magic here. It's all just unprocessed tones that you're getting. No EQs, no compression, no nothing. Everything's raw. So if you like that, feel free to subscribe and click the bell so that you can be notified every time I either go live or come out with another episode. And if you want to get some really good, brutal metal tones for either the Quad Cortex, the Tonex, or the Kemper, click the link below in the description. It's tonewars.com. It'll take you to my website and you can get some awesome guitar tones for any one of those platforms. Or you can join my Patreon. All right, so on with the video. Now, we've all been there with different pieces of gear that we bought over the years. You know, you go to the store and you buy this amp, you know, and it's like this, oh my God, I gotta have this freaking amp and it sounds amazing in the store. And then you get it home and you're like, okay, maybe I just gotta spend some time with it, dial it in and whatnot, you know. And after a couple weeks, you're like, I don't know if I like this amp. I think I made a bad decision here. And you start getting buyer's remorse with it. Or you've had an amp for a while now and you've had this like roller coaster ride with it. You know, one day it's great, next day it's not, and it's just everywhere in between. And you're always kind of like, I just got a love-hate relationship with this thing. And I don't know why, because I bought it for a reason, you know. And I'm frustrated with it now, and you're thinking about either selling it or trading it for something else or whatever. But there are things you like about it. That's why you freaking bought the damn thing in the first place, right? So you're like, what's going on here? Well, I have some solutions for you to try, okay? Some of them are going to be kind of simplistic, and some of them are going to be a little more advanced, depending on you know, where you're at in gear and stuff, but none of them are going to cost you a fortune. I can tell you that right now. So we're going to go over all of those things in this video now, and I'm going to start with the easiest one right now. And some people have an amplifier that, you know, they get it at the store and they think it's great because I've been there, I've done this. And then you spend weeks with it and you're like, it's just not as responsive as I want it to be. And, you know, I don't know what the deal is, but I just figured I would get to know the amplifier better. And after a while, maybe dialing it in, I could fix that issue with it. But for some reason, here I am with this flubby amp, and I just can't get it to respond to my type of playing for not my type of music. So let's go ahead and go over that right now. And this is going to be the more simple, straightforward kind of thing. So stay with me on this video. I have a bunch of other options for you for different kinds of issues as well. So let's start with the Mezzabarba Trinity, which isn't a really flubby amp, but in my opinion, it's not something I want to just use plugging straight into the amplifier. So let's go ahead and play a couple riffs on that amplifier right now, and I'll show you how I make it more suitable to my style of playing. All right, great tone, but it's just a little flat as far as how responsive it is, you know. And I love the amplifier, and it sounds amazing, and there's a reason why I bought it, right? I bought it for the tone and the features, obviously. But, you know, I don't want to be that purist guy. I want to be open to other options. And it's like, well, you know, how do I make this thing more responsive? Well, the number one way to do that, and I'm going to be Captain Obvious here to some of you people, you know where I'm going with this, is get a freaking overdrive pedal and just boost it, okay? A boost doesn't change the tone, it just changes the way the amp feels and how reactive and how responsive it is to your playing. Okay, now The caveat to that is, yes, some boost pedals can change the tone of your amp slightly, but for the most part, you're going to retain 99% of your tone. So I'm going to go ahead and engage the Mud Killer. That seems to work with a lot of amps, especially the thicker ones. So let's just see how well that interacts with this amplifier. I'll go ahead and turn it on after I play a couple riffs. All right, so the feel got way better. It sounds pretty much the same. It might be slightly more aggressive, but it's tighter and it's more responsive. Now, I could turn those knobs for hours and not get that kind of feel or response out of the amplifier. So it's not something I can fix just by turning knobs, okay? And it's not something that's at the fault of the amp maker either. I mean, they don't build amps to be you know, tight for everybody's taste. I mean, you can't do that. So you got to use your own boost and tighten it up that way. I know all the boost Karens are calling all their friends right now, and they're like, "Oh my God, he's like talking about boost pedals again. I'm like so sick of it. It's so cringe." But I don't give a shit what the boost Karens think, okay? Most of them can't play their way out of a wet paper bag anyway, so don't listen to people like that. Listen to me, okay? So anyways, just freaking get a good boost pedal that pairs well with the amplifier. They're all different, so just try a few out. And we'll get into more of that later in the video. But obviously the amplifier feels better for me to play my style of music. I'm just not just riding out chords here. You know, I'm doing some palm muting, some chugs, some riffs, some shredding, all that kind of stuff. And I need a pedal that's going to make the amp respond to that much better. So get one of those, and the fun factor is going to go way up with your amplifier. It should be fun. It shouldn't be some struggle. So if you're not enjoying playing through your amplifier, but you do love the amp for the tone and the features and stuff, just get a freaking boost pedal, okay? That's going to bridge the gap between you and your amplifier having a great time together. Okay? Again, let me do a riff with the pedal off, and I'll engage it, and you'll hear how it doesn't really change the sound of the amplifier, but it makes it a hell of a lot easier to play and tighter and more responsive. All right, so that's tip number one. For people that are just watching my channel for the first time, I talk about boost pedals a lot, and for people that watch my channel all the time, they're like, yep, I knew you were going to go there. So I just did this because I'm always getting new subscribers, and wanted to cover this for people that are new to the channel. And believe it or not, a lot of people haven't really heard of this, or they're being shamed out of it by all the boost Karens out there. Don't listen to those idiots. Get a good boost pedal, pair it with your amp, and I'm telling you right now, you'll thank me for it. All right, so while we're on the topic of boost pedals, let's talk about how to pick the right one for your amplifier. One of the biggest mistakes that a lot of people make when they buy a new amp, whether it's, you know, off a Reverb or at the local store or whatever, is they hook it up to the same pedal board that they've been using for years, not thinking about, is that boost pedal that's on your pedal board actually going to work well with that amplifier? Well, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of people take an amplifier home, hook it up to the pedal board, and they're like, dude, I don't like this amp at all, man. What the hell? It just sounds too thin, or sometimes it's like it's too mushy, and I don't know, man. I think this amp isn't going to work for me. And they don't think about the fact that maybe they need to get a new boost pedal to pair better with that amplifier. Now, I have a pretty big collection of amps. I have even more that are off camera. And I've had a lot of experience with different types of amplifiers. Now, there's sculpted amplifiers that are a little more on the modern side, like the Badlander here, like the Red 7, like the EVH Stealth, you know, amps like that. They're pretty sculpted. So if you use your typical TS9 or whatever type boost with some of those amplifiers, You might find that they sound a little thin and a little raspy with that pedal, as opposed to like something that sounds a little fuller or whatever, and you'll get that modern amp home and put a classic style boost pedal with it, and you're like, man, this thing sounds kind of spiky and thin and harsh. I don't know what the hell the deal is, but it doesn't have any balls, you know? And you blame the amplifier, but really, that new sculpted amplifier doesn't need a lot of sculpting done to it. It just might need a little push on the front end to make it sound a little fuller, or just be more responsive without taking all that low end out, like we used to have to do in the 80s, because all the amps back then, for the most part, except for a few maybe, were really flubby and gooey and had to have a boost. So I'm going to give you a perfect example of that right now. Okay, so let's just pretend I bought this Badlander and I just got it home and I'm excited to hook it up to my pedal board. And the pedal of choice that I have on my pedal board and I've used for years is the Mud Killer. Okay, it's a great pedal. So let's see how that sounds with the amplifier. I'll go ahead and turn it off. All right, and I'll play the amplifier without the pedal, then I'll engage it. By the way, this is how the amp is set up right now. I'm on crush mode, and I got the gain cranked, and I have the bass all the way up as well. And if you're familiar with this amplifier, you'll know that those are proper settings. So let's go ahead and see what this amplifier sounds like without the Mud Killer, and then I'll engage it. Okay, so it got more responsive, but it sounds kind of like it's starving for air. It sounds a little choked and a little bit of a half-cocked wah thing going on, and it sounds even more empty. Now, this amplifier has low end. It doesn't have a ton. They tamed a lot of it, but as soon as I engaged the pedal, I mean, I was like, okay, my hands are happy. I'm getting that nice response, but it just sounds kind of thin and a little bit on the raspy side. And there's really nothing I can do to fix that with this pedal. I mean, I can adjust the tight skinny knob all I want, and it's just not going to bring that low end back in. It's just chopping too much of it out. And there's really not much I can do to fix that. So in this predicament, a lot of us would be like, well, this amp is a piece of shit. I'm returning it back to the store because it doesn't work for me. And they don't realize that maybe they should try a different overdrive pedal. Now, one of the overdrive pedals that I like, especially for like really sculpted amps like the Badlander, is either the Oddbox or the Oddfellow Caveman. Both of those pedals allow more low end into the front of the amplifier without chopping too much of it off, but the push and response that you get with these pedals is incredible. You get some great aggression, and it retains most of the tone of the amplifier. I'm talking in high 90s, you know, as far as percentage goes of the tone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch from the Mud Killer to the Oddbox right now and show you the difference between these two pedals and how they interact with a really sculpted amp like the Badlander. So we're going to start with the Mud Killer now. Did you hear how more balanced the amplifier was with the Oddbox as opposed to the Mud Killer? The Mud Killer had a little bit of that cocked wah thing going on, and it just sounded kind of empty and hollow, where the Oddbox just added all that low end back in, made the amp sound a lot fuller, and it felt even better to play with that pedal, and it just sounded incredible. And I retained, I would say, 99% of the overall voicing and tone of the amplifier. So I've sacrificed nothing regarding my pure tone. Some people are such cork sniffers. Oh, I've got to keep my pure tone. I get that, but there's a limit, guys. You know, stop sniffing corks, you know. So just use the freaking Oddbox or a pedal like that, another great option for you is the Oddfellow Caveman. I almost slightly prefer that pedal with this, this particular amplifier. So I'm going to switch between the Oddbox and the Caveman now and show you the difference. It's pretty subtle, but I kind of like it more. Okay, so let's give that a try. Now, both of them are a great choice for you. There's a slight difference between them, but since I have both on my pedal board, I prefer slightly the Oddfellow. But if I didn't have the Oddfellow, but I had the Oddbox, I'd be perfectly fine with that. So don't go rushing out to get an Oddfellow Caveman right now. I'm just saying, if you got them both, try them, see which one you like better. But you can see how, these pedals that allow a little bit more low end into the amplifier, especially such as the Badlander, it just turns it into a fire-breathing beast. I mean, I love the tone of the Badlander. It sounds great, but it's been on the chopping block a little bit with me. That's why it hasn't been on my shelf in a while. I was like, man, maybe I should sell this. But every time I play it with either one of these pedals, I'm like, this amp freaking rules. It sounds amazing with these pedals, because I like the voicing of the amp. It's got that really nice kind of crisp top end that's kind of aggressive and grainy, and I think it sounds great with it. So let's go ahead and do this too. I'm going to go back to the Oddbox, but it's off now. So let's try the amp without the Oddbox first and then with it so you can hear the difference. All right, so yeah, it just sounds so much better with the pedal. So make sure you pick the right pedal for your new amplifier. And again, if you bring it home and you don't like it and it's hooked up to the same pedals that you've been using for years, give that a try, and I think you're going to end up keeping your amp if you find the right pedal for it. I think everybody should have an Oddbox on their pedal board. I think it's a great pedal. It works with a lot of amps, especially if you play more modern type amplifiers. It just works really good with those amps. Now I'm going to show you another amplifier really quick where I'm probably going to choose the opposite pedal with it because of the way that amplifier is built and voiced. So let's go ahead and switch over to the Soldano Astro now, and we'll find the best pedal that works for that. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the overdrives right now, and let's see which pedal best suits that amplifier. All right, so I have the Astro in red mode, which is the highest gain mode. So here's a riff without, and then I'll try a couple pedals. Sounds freaking awesome, but I want some more response. So let's start out. You know what? Oh yeah, I got the freaking Oddbox. It worked great on the Badlander, so it's a great pedal, right? So let's go ahead and try that now. All right, I'm not going to lie, it sounds good with it, but I think, and I can tell you this because I know I've experienced it, after about a week using this pedal and trying different ones, I was like, man, I don't know. It's a little bit mushy. I need some more sculpting, and I need something that's got that really nice cut and sculpting and adds that aggressiveness to the amplifier that I'm looking for. Again, it feels great, but I want something that sounds a little better. So let's switch from the Oddbox to the Mud Killer. Yeah, that's what we're talking about right there. That's what I like. I just had that nice cut, that aggressiveness, and it wasn't too mushy, and still had that good push on the front end to give it that feel and response I was looking for. So just because you have a pedal that works with one of your amps and has worked for, you know, maybe even decades with different amps that you've had, it doesn't mean it's going to work with all of them. So the overdrive pedal, in my opinion, is like the tie for the suit. It's that thing that just brings it all together. If you got a great suit and an ugly tie that works really good with one of your old suits, it's not the suit's fault, it's the tie. So it's time to go get a new tie for your new suit, and it just brings it all together, and it just freaking makes it pop. So I suggest always, before getting rid of an amplifier or giving up on one, try some different overdrive pedals. Again, my rule here is if it's a pretty modern sculpted amplifier, I'm going to go with the Oddbox first and see how that works and just take it from there. If it's a really like tubby, loose, thick amplifier, I'm going to go with something more like the Mud Killer or the Pepper's Dirty Tree or the Precision Drive. And if it's something in between, you could try the Grid Slammer. Just make sure you crank the tone knob all the way up. That's also a really good option for you. So give that a try, see if that helps you out. All right, so what if you have an amplifier that just doesn't have enough top end, you know, like it's a little on the dark side, but you do like it. It sounds great, it feels great, it's got this, this really good feel and aggression to it. But sometimes, you know, you feel like it could come out in the mix a little better in a live band situation or band practice or even recording, but it's just a little on the dark side and you just wish it was a little brighter. Or something like the Badlander where it sounds great, but you wish it had a little bit more low end in it. You know, and instead of getting rid of these types of amplifiers, whether it's not enough high end or not enough low end, or it sounds scooped, you know, and there's no mids or not enough mids or whatever, just get an EQ, you know, and put it in the loop. And, you know, MXR makes a 10-band EQ, switch cameras here, that actually does a great job, you know, and it's only 150 bucks. All right, and you could put that in the loop of your amplifier and get those frequencies back that you're missing, and you don't have to do anything drastic, okay? All right, let's do this real quick. I'm gonna turn off the overdrive. Let's go to the Badlander, all right? And let's see if we can fix that issue with the low end with that amplifier and see how quickly and easily we can do that. So the EQ's off. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it on and just move the faders around as needed. All right, that already sounds a lot fuller, and as you can see, I barely had to move these faders, just a little bit. So let's play a riff and turn it on and off and see how much of an effect it has. Pretty damn big difference, and I didn't spend a lot of time on it, as you saw. I just moved the faders a little bit here and there, and it really made a big difference. So just for giggles, I'm going to go ahead. Let's say you have one of these laying around. Okay, you got a MXR, you know, 10-band EQ or any other kind of EQ pedal laying around. By the way, there's a ton of different ones. There's digital ones. There's all kinds of cool stuff you could do with these, but I'm just doing a simple one for you guys, something really affordable. So let's say you already have one of these, okay, and you don't want to have to buy a new overdrive pedal. Let's see if this solves the problem with my current overdrive pedal. Let's say if it's the Mud Killer. So let's turn the Mud Killer back on, and I'm stuck with it, right? And I don't want to buy another one, but let's see if I can fix this whole issue with the MXR 10-band EQ. Just for shits and gigs. Let's see. All All right, so that would get me by. And again, I'm not going to spend hours messing with all this stuff on camera. I'm just giving you concepts here. So I think if you spent a little more time with something like this, you could probably make this all work and save yourself some money if you already have one of these pedals and you just don't want to have to get a new overdrive. Now for me, at this current state with these settings, I still prefer the odd box, but like I said, if I spent more time with it, I guarantee you I could probably come up with a solution, but I'm not going to bore you with all that crap. So let's go ahead and try another amplifier that's kind of notorious for not being bright enough, but still sounds amazing. So instead of getting rid of that amplifier, why not just put an EQ in the loop and just fix that? So let's do that really quick. Okay, so this is one of my favorite amps. I love the Victory Kraken. I think it's awesome, but its Achilles heel, and everybody knows, is it doesn't have a freaking presence knob, and that's why they came out with the new one that has it. But let's say you already have one of these and you're like, I don't want to have to buy the new one. You know, it's only 50 watts and I don't want to have to spend all that money and get rid of this one. Just get a freaking EQ, put it in the loop, and just find a frequency that just bumps it up a little bit so it sticks out in the mix the way you want it to. So let's give that a try right now. Dude, this amp smokes. It's so good. And so the EQ is off. Let me switch over to the camera here. EQ is off. Let's not pay attention to the Badlander. Let's pay attention to the EQ here. So let's go ahead and mess around with the EQ and see what we can come up with. That didn't take much. Now, as you can see on the EQ, I have 10 bands here. I don't have like 6K or whatever, you know, so, you know, you might want to get something that has more bands if you want more selections, but I'm just showing you on a simple EQ pedal here. There's 20 bands, there's all kinds. So I just grabbed the 8K and just nudged it a hair, and man, it just had this really nice bite to it. So now let's hear what it sounds like with and without. I'll start with it on and just see how it sounds, and then let's see if it drops down a little bit when I turn it off. Honestly, that sounds absolutely glorious. And look at the adjustment I made. It's just a hair up on the 8K. I mean, look at the difference there. You can see it. I don't know if my finger's screwing you up, but it's just a slight little nudge. So that's what I mean. It just needed that little teeny push, and that saved this amplifier from going up on reverb or trading, or, you know, because you don't want to have to sell this thing to get the new one. Just get this and it solves the problem. So this is actually a really good pedal that I think everybody should have. I mean, like I said, there's digital ones that you could program for your different amps or whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of different EQ pedals that you could put in the loop of your amplifiers and get really fine-tuning stuff down and sculpting and stuff like that. The only thing I'll warn you about is option paralysis and never-ending tweaking. Just don't do that. You know, just get something simple like this, or maybe something that has a little bit more, you know, bands on it as far as, you know, just different frequencies, and just mess around with it and just set it and forget it. Stop messing around with it, you know. And as you can see, again, it doesn't take much. It just takes a nudge. Don't do anything extreme. Just nudge things up slowly until you get what you want out of it, and just freaking leave it there. Don't touch it anymore. So it'll help amps like the Badlander that don't have enough low end, or an amplifier like the Kraken that could be a hair dark, or some amps just have that scooped sound to them and you want to bump the mids a little bit. So it's just a great tool to have. All right, so let's move on to the next segment now. A lot of times, you know, we have a cab at our house that we've had for, could be decades, several years, decades, whatever. It's just our tried and true cab, and it's amazing, and we love it. You know, we don't think about the fact that when we bring home our new amplifier and hook it up to that cab, maybe that cab just doesn't work with that amplifier, but we blame the amp. We're like, well, this thing sounded better at the store, or I thought it would be better, and I'm kind of disappointed in this thing. Well, maybe it's your cab. Maybe it's time to get either a new cab or some new speakers, okay? And sometimes, you know, just adding, like, you know, if you got a 412 and you do the crisscross thing, you know, you get two speakers here, two different ones there, or on a 212, you put one on one side, one on the other, and you get the best of both worlds kind of thing going on, which definitely could help out some amplifiers. And you got to pay attention to when the amp builders make amps, you know, see what their cabs have in them, you know, and a lot of times, whatever their cabs have in them is how they, you know, the amp builder designed that amp to sound best with those types of speakers, and they test the amp and the voicing of that amp with that cab that has those speakers in it, and that's how they release it. I'm not saying that you have to use their speakers in their cabs, but that's kind of like the optimal thing for the amp builder anyways. That's what he built the amplifier to pair with, you know. So in other words, that's his ideal version of the amplifier. So if you get it home and it just doesn't sound right to you, and you've tried all these other tricks and it still isn't right, well, like I said, maybe it's your cab, maybe it's your speakers. So what we're going to do now is, now that we have the Kraken sounding freaking amazing, let's try it out with a couple of different speakers. So I'm going to blend the cabs because I have the KHE amp switcher instead of blending speakers. So each cab has different speakers in it. So pay attention to what you see on the screen. The speakers in those cabs are listed, but in case you're just listening, I'll tell you. So the Zilla, the speaker I have mic'd in there is the DV77. Okay, the Eminence. And in the diesel cab, I have the G12 K100s, and of course in the Mesa, I have the Vintage 30s. So let's go ahead and pair some speakers together and see how they sound. So you can tell by pairing speakers together, you can get a lot of great tonal options. Let me give you an example. So let's say I take home the Kraken, and I'm like, well, let me hook it up to my speaker cabinet with the DV77s in it. And I'm like, well, that just doesn't sound very good. But instead of blaming the amplifier, maybe I should get another speaker to pair with that DV77 because it sounds a little dark, and you know, maybe I should pair it with a different speaker. Put another speaker in that cabinet and pair them together and see if I can get a better sound out of it instead of returning the amp, you know. So let's see what that sounds like. Sounds freaking way better. So that darkness that the DV77 had kind of blends in with the Vintage 30 really well and gives it that thickness. and that throaty kind of thing, but then the Vintage 30 gives it that bite, you know, and together they sound amazing. So that's one of my favorite pairings right there. So it's just a couple of examples of what you can do regarding speaker pairings and stuff like that. So it's fun too. Like when you dive into that stuff, it actually is kind of fun to do. And I know a lot of guys that do the X pattern thing and whatnot. So you definitely do get the best of both worlds when you do that. Just pair the right speakers together and you're going to have great tone. All right, so the final thing I want to talk to you about in this video are your pickups. Now, I know there's some people out there who say pickups don't matter, and they rant and rave and jump up and down about how pickups don't matter and blah, blah, blah. Well, they do matter, okay? Because I've had guitars here with, I had a Schecter that I bought a while back, and it had the, oh gosh, what were those? The Fishman Fluence pickups in it, the moderns. And those pickups definitely mattered, and they mattered on some amps more than they did on others. But I could tell the difference as soon as I played the guitar with those pickups through any one of my amps. I was immediately disappointed, you know. And like I said, on some amps they're more forgiving than others, but like on the real sculpted amp, like the Badlander, they sounded like pure ass on that amplifier. I hated them. They sounded sterile and cold and thin. And the thing is you got to remember, it's not just your ears, it's your hands. You notice with your hands. We listen with our hands, you know. So the guitar just felt dead to me. It just had no life, and there was no soul in the pickups. And I just hated those pickups. So, you know, a lot of times you'll buy a new amplifier and take it home, and you're like, yeah, this thing sounds like crap. I can't stand it. It's not the amp, most likely. It's one of the things that I mentioned, or it could be your freaking crappy-ass pickups. You know, maybe you got away with those pickups in those other amplifiers, but now you have something a little more modern, a little more sculpted, and now you can really hear what those pickups are doing or not doing. And suddenly your ears and your hands are not happy with that amp, but it's not the amp. It could be your pickups as well. And like I said, there's a lot of people who rant and rave about how pickups don't matter. Well, in a mix and, in a studio, you can't hear the difference and blah, blah, blah. Do not listen to that rubbish. It's pure rubbish. Don't listen to studio engineers telling you that pickups don't matter. Guitar players are the people you need to listen to. People that actually love this instrument and play it daily know that pickups do matter, okay? It's not a studio engineer's perspective that I give a shit about when it comes to my pickups. It's a guitar player's, namely me, the guy that's playing the damn thing, but it's a guitar player's perspective that I want. Not some guy that's going to mix my guitar in a mix after I'm done, playing my tracks and stuff and reamping and, all the shit, the studio magic and everything that happens after I leave. Because at the end of the day, when I play guitar, 99% of the time that I'm playing this thing, it's not in a mix and it's not in a studio. It's by myself, in front of my amp, in front of my digital platform, whatever. And even if I am playing in a mix, like on my practice sessions down here up in my living room, I'm not thinking about, wow, does that really stand out in a mix if I was doing a final mix right now? I don't give a shit. You know why? Because I'm not mixing right now. I'm not recording. I'm just practicing. And the guitar has to feel right to me, and it has to sound good to me, and I don't want to be distracted with this sterile shit that some of these pickups give me, depending on what amp I'm playing through. Sometimes it stands out more than others. So don't listen to anybody when they say pickups don't matter, because they do. They absolutely do matter. And that's something I will jump up and down about forever, because as a guitar player, they matter to me, okay? It doesn't matter what the studio guys think, because the thing is you can fix anything in a studio. You could take anything and fix it in a studio, so it doesn't matter, okay? They can take your guitars and reamp them through anything and get any sound that they want. And at that point, your pickups, yeah, they don't matter when it comes to that, okay? Not for the most part, but as a player, they absolutely do. So check and see if your pickups are the issue. Try a friend's guitar out on the amplifier that you're having trouble with. Try some different pickups. If you have different guitars with different pickups, find the one that works with that amp and then go, well, I guess I got to change pickups on my other guitars, or if it's not worth it to you, then figure out what you got to do from there. But it could very well be your pickups because they actually do freaking matter. And like I said, when I had those Fishman Fluence Moderns in here, I played through the Badlander, hated this amplifier with those pickups. Hated one of my favorite amps, the EVH Stealth. Hated that amplifier with those pickups. It sounded sterile. The feel was terrible. It was all off and awful. And I just, I just hated those pickups. But see, I knew better because I had better guitars here with better pickups. And I would switch and go, oh, yeah, it's not the amp. It's the freaking pickups, So I ended up sending that guitar back, and you guys know the story. I ended up getting the Mach 7 Banshee with the Lundgren in the bridge and the Sustainiac in the neck, and I still have that guitar. You know why? Because the pickups actually work. So do they matter? Yeah, they freaking do. So again, don't listen to anybody who tells you that they don't, because they do. I hope that all of these different options were helpful to you, and if you haven't tried them, please do. An EQ, 150 bucks. It could save your amplifier. In my opinion, it absolutely saved the Kraken. I mean, I wasn't going to sell it anyways, but if I was thinking about selling it because it was a little on the dark side, well, I don't have to worry about that anymore. I could just take an EQ, put it on my pedal board, click it on when I'm playing through the Kraken, and it sounds perfect. In fact, it sounds amazing. So there's no need for me to buy the Kraken 2 and step down from the 100 watts to the 50 watts and lose all the features that are on this one. I could just stick with this one and throw an EQ in the loop. I already had this thing laying around for a couple years. Why not put it to use, and keep my amps? So I hope that helps you. And again, try different boost pedals. Anytime you get a new amplifier, try out some new boost pedals with it. Just do yourself a favor and do that, because I guarantee you, you're going to find that I'm right about that. Sculpted amps, go for the odd box. That's your starting point. More tubby, like gooey, kind of looser amps, go for something like the Mud Killer or a TS9, like the Horizon Devices Precision Drive, pedals like that, and just see what works best with that amplifier. So don't give up on your amplifiers. Try these options and see what works best for you. Well, thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And to all my subscribers and Patreon supporters, thank you guys very much. I really appreciate you guys. I got a lot of great stuff coming up for you guys, and I will see you on the next one.